All right, well, we're back now, and it's another edition. It's the February 16th edition of
History Strikes Back.
Well, okay, this is the part of the program when I explore a certain this day in history kind of stuff. There's lots of this day in history websites and resources and things out there, calendar apps and such. But I don't think there's anything quite like what I produce here.
No, there's nothing. There's nothing like you. They broke the mold.
February 16th in 1570, the Jewish community of Ferrara, which I believe is in Italy, the Jewish community of Ferrara suffered a very bad earthquake. In 1968, the Haleyville, Alabama. Care to take a guess as to what happened in Haleyville, Alabama in 1968?
The first 911 call. I see 9/11. What is? You did this to me on purpose. You are mean.
Yes, that is correct. The first 911 call. It was the first town or first township or whatever in the entire country to adopt the 911 method for calling for emergency.
Right. That's cool. So it's been around that long. It's been around since 1968.
This is what I get. I wrote it down, so you can't miss.
Oh, that's why you were laughing.
You can't miss.
Well, thank you for helping me out. You know, I need all the help I can get.
Well, 1968 was a very eventful year, so I always have to mention something that happened in 1968.
So, but they've had 911 since 1968.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it's been that long.
Yeah, well,
I thought it was like since the 80s or something.
It started in Haleyville. I mean,
oh, okay.
Yeah, it didn't start in Baltimore or Chicago or anything like that. It started in Haleyville, Alabama.
So what happened in Haleyville? Do you know what the 911 call was about?
That is a really good question.
Good. Do I need to look it up?
Socratic method? Sure. Go right ahead.
Don't ask me any questions while I'm...
In 1946, on February 16th, was the premiere of the Sikorsky helicopter. In 1646 was the Battle of Torrington. This is another Oliver Cromwell English Civil War related thing. We've talked about that kind of stuff. Talked about the English Civil War and Oliver Cromwell. And I did try to do some research on Torrington, but really all I've been able to find are tour guides. Like, coming to England, well, visit the site of the Battle of Torrington. And that's about all I get. So I don't know. I can't tell you how many people died or were burned, or how many animals were used to anyway.
Anyways,
I don't know where that was going. I've got some other things here from historyorb.com. Let's see how many things wrong I can find. Just playing. In 600, on February 16th, year 600, Pope Gregory the Great decrees saying "God bless you" as a correct response to a sneeze.
Really?
That's apparently where it originated. Yeah. In 1804, Lieutenant Stephen Decatur raided Tripoli Harbor and burned the Navy frigate Philadelphia after pirates seized it. And we did talk a little bit about this in a previous show. There's a book called The Pirate Coast that I believe I reviewed on a previous show, and it talks about Jefferson and the pirate invasion of the boat off the coast of Tripoli in Libya, 1804, and the things that Jefferson and the first Marines. It was about the first Marines. So that's where that comes from. Mm-hmm. Ladies' Home Journal began publishing in 1883. In Minnesota, Pekagama Dam, I guess, Minnesota. It was a state record for freezing cold temperatures in 1903.
You really got a thing for the freezing cold temperatures.
Hey,
you did it
global
last
warming.
month. You did it a few weeks ago.
I'm just trying to prove global warming
is a farce.
It's happening.
So you
I don't
agree
know.
with global warming?
I don't know.
or
You tell
disagree?
me. You tell me.
I don't know.
Is that global warming when
In
it's
one ear,
freezing
I've
cold?
got Al Gore on YouTube. My other ear got my husband going off on it. So I'm somewhere in the middle going, I just know it is really cold.
I don't need Al Gore to tell me that it's cold or that it's hot, and that it's getting hotter, and that the sun is really hot inside of it. Millions of degrees.
You do a good Al Gore. You do Bill Clinton. You'd have a conversation with yourself.
Not right now, honey. In 1937, Jean Anouilh's Le Voyageur sans bagage premiered in Paris.
That's a mouthful. What is that?
I don't know. It sounded interesting, though.
Wow, Hank. You realize this is a history show. You're supposed to be educating us, not just reading facts off a page.
Hey, I'm just...
It was interesting.
It's
Okay.
content.
It happened. There you go.
It's called content.
It's content. Okay.
That's
your excuse and you're sticking to it.
I leave it up to the listening audience to...
You leave a lot up to the listening audience.
Their own research or their own imaginations, depending on which they're better at.
Well, if they're from TFOK, the imagination sector is not a problem. And believe me, they lead the never mind.
In 1970, Joe Frazier TKO'd Jimmy Ellis in 5 rounds for heavyweight boxing title.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? 1964, Beatles made their second appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Also, we had their first appearance last week.
Yeah, I guess did they come back the next week?
It was either last week or the week. Did we talk about last week or the week before?
I can't believe they would come back. They come back that quickly.
Was it the
but
same
I guess
year?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's the same year, 1964.
Well, you got a stack of papers down there. You want to shuffle through it? Or?
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You're already researching. I'm supposed to be leaving you
I'm
alone.
done researching. I'm leaving. I'm waiting for you to remember.
Well, and then I have in 1899, Knatsbreiðrúgflag Reykjavik for Iceland as their first football club. It's founded.
You know how many names you've said in the past 5 minutes that sound like either cuss words or body parts?
The hardest part of history is the names.
Yes.
Okay, what did you find?
Well, I found out it wasn't an emergency.
Okay.
It was basically a test call. So I don't know how much of this you want me to read, but in the 1950s, independent telephone companies were very common. Of course, we knew all that. In 1958, Congress called for a universal emergency number. At the time, the President's Commission, Law Enforcement, the FCC, started arguing over a single, easy-to-remember number. This was due to a large volume of emergency calls going to telephone company operators. A person may be calling for emergency help while the operator was giving information on the number of Aunt Betsy in Louisiana. And now they're being funny. Yeah. For over 10 years, the idea was discussed and argued about among the different agencies who wanted to receive the calls. Police said they should answer all calls. The fire department felt they were the better choice. Some even felt the local hospital was the best answer. According to a report in the Fayette, Alabama Times Record commemorating the 25th anniversary of the historic event, B.W. Gallagher, president of Alabama Telephone Company, said he was inspired by an article in the Wall Street Journal. He said that the president of AT&T and the FCC had announced that 911 would be the nationwide emergency number. Being a bit offended by the fact that the views of the independent telephone industry had been overlooked in this decision, Gallagher decided to make the Alabama Telephone Company the first to implement 911. Gallagher consulted with Robert Fitzgerald, inside plant manager, blah, blah, blah. In the early stages, the city fathers were... Okay, and I'm going to put a link to this so you can read what all my blah, blah, blahs were. In the early stages, the city fathers were skeptical of 911 calls being answered at the police station. They, like persons in Congress, were afraid the city might not have the personnel qualified to answer all emergency calls. Haleyville, after all that to say, Haleyville, Alabama introduced the nation's first 911 system, which was located at the police station. Alabama Speaker of the House, Rankin Fight, made the first call from another city hall room. It was answered by Congressman Tom Bevel on a bright red telephone located in the police department. Also on hand was Haleyville Mayor James Witt, Public Service Commission President Eugene Bull Connor, and B.W. Gallagher. So on February 16th, 1968, the first 911 call was made.
Okay. So it wasn't a wife beating then, huh?
No, it was not a wife beating. It might have
that's
been
a
a
shame.
political beating, but no, nothing exciting. And I just read all that just basically to say they argued over it.
Yeah.
And finally came to a decision,
Yeah.
and then all huddled into a room, and someone called from another room.
Well,
I have an emergency.
all right. Well, that wraps up another edition of
History Strikes Back.